So I genuinely don't understand why James Gunn greenlit this movie, because after all the talk about the new DCU, I honestly expected him to deliver banger after banger. But Supergirl isn't even decent. It's just a bad movie. The biggest problem is that it feels completely pointless. The movie starts, it ends, and absolutely nothing about it feels important to the DCU. Even if it was meant to be a fun, standalone filler adventure, it somehow fails at that too because it's just not entertaining. The runtime is only around 1 hour and 50 minutes, but somehow it still feels much longer than it actually is, which is never a good sign. What really confused me is James Gunn describing this as a dark and tragic story, because honestly, I barely felt any darkness in this movie. Instead, it falls into the same Marvel-style formula with constant comedy and jokes that completely kill any emotional weight. Even the premise is unbelievably dumb. There's this girl whose family gets slaughtered by Krim, and then suddenly the movie cuts to the next morning where she's standing in front of their graves. And I was literally sitting there thinking, what the hell just happened? Was that scene supposed to make me emotional? Because it honestly came off as unintentionally funny. Then she spends what feels like forever going from bar to bar, looking for someone who can help her get revenge on Krim, and the whole thing just looks ridiculous. Eventually, she finds Kara, and then comes what is probably the dumbest scene in the entire movie. Kara takes Crypto outside so he can poop, and while the dog is literally taking a dump, Krim's crew casually steals her spaceship without anyone noticing. I'm sorry, but I couldn't take that seriously. Then Krim shoots Crypto with a poisoned arrow, and suddenly Kara has only 3 days to save him by getting the antidote from Krim. That's basically the entire plot. From there, Kara and the girl go on this space adventure that honestly becomes exhausting to watch, because the pacing is all over the place, the story never really gets interesting, and some of the CGI looks surprisingly rough for a movie that's supposed to launch one of DC's biggest heroes. Now, the movie isn't completely terrible because there are a few positives. Millie Alcock does a really good job as Supergirl. I actually liked her performance, and I think she has the potential to become a great version of the character if she's given better material in future movies. Jason Momoa is also fun whenever he's on screen, but don't go into this expecting him to steal the show or go absolutely crazy because his role isn't nearly as big as you might think. The final fight is probably the best sequence in the movie and gives you a glimpse of what this film could have been if the rest of it had the same energy. But apart from those few positives, I just found Supergirl to be a mediocre and disappointing movie. It doesn't have an impactful story, the emotional moments don't land, the comedy often undercuts the serious scenes, the plot feels incredibly weak, and by the end, I just felt like I had watched a filler episode stretched into a feature film. If this is supposed to be one of the early building blocks of James Gunn's DCU, then I honestly expected a lot more.